Okay, round 5. Good morning. Happy Monday morning to everybody. Sorry that this video took a little bit longer. I actually got like 40 minutes into it and didn't like where my train of thought was going. Now that I've got all the kinks out of it, we're going to try to re-record it and get it going, okay? Happy Monday morning to you. Welcome to the Civically Minded Nationalist, episode 10. We're double digits, folks. Oh, love my coffee. Black Rifle Coffee Company. I also got some really, really good flavored coffee, but I needed a little bit more punch than that had in it this morning, so I'm going with the Black Rifle for today. Let's just get right into it. Episode 10 is going to be entitled Jack Eats Crow, happily, and the 25th Amendment Conspiracy Against the President of the United States. Quite frankly, if you thought Watergate was a scandal, Democrats, I'm talking to you. If you thought Watergate was a scandal, explain to me why you are not standing outside the FBI and Department of Justice and Congress and all these places, pitchforks and torches going, ready to slaughter anybody that looks at you wrong. That's how serious this is, and no one's painting the picture. And oh, by the way, as to start out, I've got to admit I was wrong. To wrap up, I'm going to show you just how right I can be. Because this is going to tie all of these things that the media is telling you are unrelated together. And it's going, I guarantee you, give it a month, and it is going to come out. Eventually, someone is going to leak closed-door testimony with Stone that he has the connecting line between the absolute top of the corruption and the one step down, okay? As far as all this investigation nonsense goes. Not talking about the world's corruption, I'm talking about just the Russian collusion nonsense, okay? Because all this just got tied together over the weekend, and it's very entertaining, and it's actually very important. Let's get into Jack Eats Crow. Section 1, Jack Eats Crow. That's at the, we'll just say 2-minute 30. 2.5, Section 1. Jack Eats Crow. I have to I'm sorry, I know you guys are used to watching me type while I'm doing stuff. I apologize. That's not how it's going to be today. My printer was updating, and then my Microsoft Office needed to recycle and recompile some stuff, so I'm handwriting. I'm sorry, it's a little bit disjointed. Now, yes, Jack Eats Crow. I have never been more happy to be wrong. I didn't think he was going to do it. But that's the only point that I'm wrong on in all this, is that he actually did it, folks. Yep, I'm still holding to my guns. He gained nothing by waiting these last 6 months, specifically, okay? If he knew that no matter who was in control of the House, the Senate, all these things, he knew there was no point in waiting for all of this, okay? This was politicking. This was nothing more than politicking and waiting. He thought, maybe I can sway some moderates, maybe I can get the indoctrinated to wake up, maybe I can steal some people from DACA and all this kind of stuff. You can, well, no, that's not what he was trying to do. No, you don't get to argue that, because you guys told me that's exactly what he was trying to do, okay? So stop. It's not even up for debate. You guys told me he was trying to win over more of the Pelosi fan base. You guys told me he was trying to win over these people and put pressure on Congress and all this kind of stuff. You guys told me that. Okay? I think you're right. My point is, I said it wasn't going to work. This is a waste of time. Don't waste your time doing this. You have a heck of a legal battle staring you down. Focus your energy there. And it fell on deaf ears. Here we are. We're doing what we said, what I was saying to do 6 months ago. Just declare it and get it into the courts. If you'd have done it, first off, if your goal is to really drain the swamp, do it, put this in front of them while there's a Republican-controlled House and Senate. We already know the Democrats are snakes. We don't need you to prove the Democrats are snakes. Make the Republicans show their true colors, Mr. President. Put it in front of them and make them have to decide. You've already forced them decide if they're going to fund the wall or not. That never happened. So now you take action, unilateral action, by going out there and saying, you know what? Fine, state of emergency. We're going to fund it, state of emergency, and make them say, no, this doesn't qualify as a state of emergency. We vote against your state of emergency declaration. Make them do it. Just make them do it. That way we have a list of names of everybody who said all this stuff, so that, because you can't drain the swamp on your own, Mr. President, we the citizens have to do that. So you've got to give us the names. That's how you actually more effectively drain the swamp. That's why I was mad he didn't do it back then. Instead, we waited. I think that was a poor decision, but I'm glad the ball is rolling now, and I love the way in which he did it, looking away from one independent issue. That one independent issue is straightforward, very straightforward. Paul Ryan was called out for not doing his job about the wall. And there was a lack of leadership in the response to that. Trump's response to he didn't throw the name out there. I'm not saying he did. The reporter in the peanut gallery said, this is what's going on. You know, you said you weren't experienced enough with our political system to be able to push for the wall, so you counted on others around you to do that, and they failed to do so. You were talking about Paul Ryan. What difference does it make at this point is actually what he directly said, and I thought that was a great touch. But he said, I'm not going to throw out names out there or anything, but yeah, there were people who were supposed to do a job and they didn't do it. Okay. There's nothing wrong with that answer, but go ahead and take it the step further. Go ahead and say, they didn't do their job, and I, as the boss, as the person directing the action here, didn't go through and get the job done through that means. That's why we're doing it this way now. Okay? It seems like such a slight misstep, I guess, and it seems like I'm splitting hairs. Maybe it's the military background in me. Maybe that's where that's coming from. I don't know. But really, the better way to have done that, especially when you have a government and media conspiring together to undermine your presidency, it's such a minor thing, you're correct, so why not handle it in a better way? I'm just saying, for me, I think the easier answer there would have just simply been, you know what, I'm not going to put names to it. The job didn't get done when I had asked it to be done. Now we're doing it this way. Unfortunately, sometimes as the boss, when the deal doesn't go through, you have to step in and get a little bit more hands-on, and that's what we're doing now. There you go. And it's done, and we move on. Okay? Outside of that one misstep, I think it was fantastic. The speech itself sucked. His brain was clearly still stuck back on whatever economic stuff with China he was talking about in that room with whoever was in there with him beforehand. His brain I believe his brain processes faster than his mouth can get there, and it takes him time, because whoever went in there and gave him whatever 5-sentence update, it's not 5 sentences of information to him. It is pages and pages and pages and files and files and books of information in his head that just got modified and changed. That's how he's run his businesses for decades. That's how he's running the United States of America. His brain was still processing that when he went out there to give that speech, and it showed. He was stuck on that. He was still processing, and it ended up being a lackluster speech right up until the end, which was phenomenal, and handling the press. At the end, he really hammered it home, and this is what I've been asking my politicians, well, no, they're not statesmen, they're politicians, to do for years, and I love that he did it. He didn't just say, this is what we're going to do, and this is why we're going to do it. He said, this is the course of action going forward with this process, which is exactly what we've been needing. Call it out. Let us know what the problems are. Well, he did. So I'm going to sign this state of emergency. It's going to go up. I'm going to get sued. We're going to get a bad ruling. It'll probably come from the Ninth Circus. And then we're going to move forward with that bad ruling, and we're going to get it in front of the Supreme Court where we will get the right ruling, i.e., where we will win. And he's right. That's my point in all of this. The point in all of this has always been, you can't make them do the job, so what are you going to do about it? 6 months ago, 8 months ago, he should have done this. It might already be on the SCOTUS docket right here, right now. And don't tell me he was waiting for Ginsburg to die. Don't give me that, okay? Trust me, I thought she was dead too. I'm not really sold that that's actually Ginsburg, to be honest with you. But, point being, at the end of the day, we're looking at this from the perspective of he could have done this. And he did not know Ginsburg was going to die. He didn't think Ginsburg was going to die. He wasn't waiting for another Supreme Court nomination to slow this process up, because everybody knows that that's going to take a year in and out of itself just to get another butt in the seat once she kicks. Now, as soon as that left my mouth, I realized if anybody actually watches this to the 11-minute mark, I'm going to take so much flack for that. Oh well, I said it. I'm not sorry. It's amazing to think. I'm making it worse. I'm going to stop talking about Ginsburg and we're going to move on. This is what he should have done to begin with. Once he realized Paul Ryan was not going to do the job Paul Ryan said he was going to do, no problem. You're not going to do it. I'm going to out you all by putting this in front of you, making you say you disagree with the statement, with the declaration of the state of emergency, and then I'm going to have your names on a list for all your constituents to deal with you. Because they elected me to drain the swamp, now I'm giving them a reason to be able to get your butt out of office. Bam. All that being said, very, very happy with everything. Could not be more pleased with how he handled the press afterwards. He was ready for the questions, and he went for it swinging. It was beautiful. He shut him down. Jim Acosta, making Jim Acosta look like an idiot's not hard. He does that on his own when he's standing in front of the border wall. But it was great to watch him obliterate these guys. There was some sleazeball there who tried to say, there's no violence on the border, so why are you doing this? And all the angel moms stood up and held up their pictures, and they go, the violence doesn't have to be on the border. One of the things that was being said in the background was, the violence doesn't stay on the border. The violence goes to cities like where my daughter was killed, where my son was killed. The violence is on the border where these border patrol agents were killed. The violence is on the border where these people were raped and they were robbed and all these kinds of horrible, terrible things. What are you talking about? There's no violence on the border. See, Democrats, I'm going to give you a real life story that just happened to someone near and dear to me here not too long ago. They were traveling at the airport. And there was a person at the airport who was coming to El Paso. And this person was toting, one of the safest big cities in America. El Paso's great. It's so safe. And this person goes, I got somebody down there in El Paso. And he says that the vast majority of the crimes that happen don't get prosecuted at the appropriate levels. They get dismissed or they get buried or there's no charges at all. Or they get watered down to much lesser charges that nobody's really caring about and all that kind of stuff. When in the rest of America, the charges that were presented would have been what went to court. Excuse me. So how do you explain that? And the answer that this woman gave to this person was, that's just the east side of El Paso. I live on the west side. That doesn't happen on the west side. I'm not kidding. This is what just happened. This is how they view it, okay? That didn't happen in my neighborhood, so that means it didn't really happen on the border. That's not what it means. It didn't happen in Texas, so it didn't happen on the border. It didn't happen within 150 miles of the border, so it didn't have anything to do with the border. Okay? Liberals have to isolate to very specific points, rip them bleeding and dripping out of the context in order to try to make their arguments. And it got shut down in this press conference. It was a beautiful thing to watch. I loved it. It was handled flawlessly. My hat's off to the president. You didn't act fast enough. You've made this a harder fight in the long run. But my hat's off that you followed your campaign promise and you have now checked off the whole list. The whole list is checked off. I'm actually going to put that in the description. The whole list is checked off. Now, okay? Because it is. The whole list, start to finish, top to bottom. He's done literally everything he can as of right now to fulfill his campaign promises. My hat's off to you, Mr. President. Good on you for doing it. Thank you for taking the border seriously. I do genuinely wish you had acted sooner. But you know what? I will eat my crow with a smile on my face, sir. Thank you for doing what you promised your constituents and your voters that you would do. I didn't think you had the spine for it. I'm glad to see that I was proven wrong. It was just a difference in policy about timing. So, thank you for that. There's that. Now, in the defense of the president, this point before we jump on to the 25th Amendment conspiracy against the sitting president of the United States. There are people, left and right. Well, I shouldn't say left and right. Let's say red and blue. Let's be a little bit more accurate and not put anti-Constitution and pro-Constitution in the picture because none of them are really pro-Constitution. Let's put red and blue. Okay? Coming out and saying this is a dangerous precedent. Whack Job Pelosi has come out and tried to say, well, if you're going to set a precedent by doing this, then the next Democrat president that we have will just have to go ahead and make an executive order or a state of emergency ruling on firearms in the United States. What do you think about? You haven't thought this through, have you? Okay? First off, that reaction solidifies beyond any shadow of a doubt what I've been telling you all to begin with. These people will not negotiate. They will never negotiate. And if our standpoint with terrorists is that we don't negotiate with terrorists, we need to start treating the Democrats with the same policy. Because that statement tells me abundantly clearly, clear as crystal, night and day, black and white, there was never an intent from the Democrats in this government to negotiate with the president on the border. Proof right there. The reaction to calling out that they're not going to work with me and they're not going to give me what I need in order to secure the border is to threaten our constitutional rights as citizens. That is a domestic terroristic threat. You cannot threaten to violate my rights. You cannot. And they did it unabashedly, no shame involved whatsoever. They just went for it. And they're trying to say the precedent the President Trump is setting by taking this action. Marco Rubio, ladies, God, you are not going to like me. So many of you tried to say that Marco Rubio was the best choice for president. Ladies, I'm going to break this down for you. If your man went to a garage and saw a gorgeous woman and he went, yep, I want her to work on my car, you'd go, sorry? Why? She's not even dirty. Her coveralls are totally clean. Why do you want her to work on your car? Because she's the best one for it. And you go up to this woman and you say, ma'am, are you a certified mechanic? ACSWAM, whatever that's terrible. I can't remember what the acronym is for the mechanic certifications these days. That's terrible. Anyways, you go up and you say, are you certified? No, but I'm learning. I'm kind of figuring out what I'm doing here. Everybody's been really nice. And you're going, okay, my transmission's slipping in this car. Do you have transmission experience? No, but I can take a look at it. And you walk back to your husband and you go, you idiot. She's got a nice butt. That's why you want her to work on your car. It has nothing to do with her abilities. Okay? Ladies, that is the same argument about your support of Marco Rubio. He's a pretty boy. He's a sharp-looking guy. I can admit it. I got beat with the ugly. I hit every branch on the ugly tree on the way down, okay? I get it. It's not a jealousy thing. He's a good-looking guy. He's sharp-dressed. He's got a wardrobe that probably costs more than my yearly income, okay? Dude's on top of his aesthetics, okay? Man was not qualified to do anything, and this proves it. to go out and try to say that the precedent he's flirting with is dangerous to the future security of the United States and all these kinds of things. That's a paraphrase. That's not exactly how he said it, but that's what he was trying to get across. Look, he wasn't... that's exactly what I'm talking about. He's clearly not qualified to even be in the role that he's in. And yet, here we are. Why do I bring Rubio into it? Because I wanted one from both the blue and the red. So now you have one. There's a lot more out there that you can pick from, but that's the one that I went with. Maybe because I finally wanted to be able to say, would y'all shut your hormones down for a second and evaluate the man? Maybe. That might have had something to do with it. I don't know what to tell you. All right, fine. I may be a little bit jealous because he's a good-looking guy. Anyhow, all that goes through, and I have to sit here and go, time the F out. What? The precedent Trump is setting? What hole have you lived under for the past 30 years? Be it declarations of states of emergency, be it executive actions, whatever, coming from the executive branch. Are you kidding me? He set the precedent? Trump set the precedent? The only precedent was set was that a state of emergency was actually declared on behalf of the American people. Presidents have been declaring states of emergency all over the world for the past 30 years because they knew Congress would never vote for it. It was just so under the radar and so non-important and a good way to be able to burn off more money so we could continue raising taxes that it didn't get argued. That's the only difference. This has absolutely nothing to do with setting precedent. The definition of the word precedent, we're going to pull it up real quick so I can read it to you. It's actually really, really good, and I wish I had kept it up earlier because I actually had the whole thing up. An earlier event or action that is regarded as an example or guide to be considered in subsequent similar circumstances. That's the definition. That's exactly what Obama used most of his states of emergency as. This is exactly what he did it for. He set the precedent. He went, well, this is never going to go through Congress, or this is going to take too long to go through Congress, or I'm not going to get the funding I want for Congress, so I'm just going to declare a state of emergency and divert funds to do it. Help Haiti, whatever. I mean, you name it. It almost literally, it was ridiculous how many different countries were helped by American state of emergency declarations. That makes no sense, by the way. None whatsoever. That's what was going on there. It was going on with 43 before him, and it was going on with Clinton, and it was going on with 41. And honestly, I didn't go this far back. I don't like saying this, but it probably happened a time or two under Reagan. I don't know. But I would guess that that's how far back this has been going. I hope not Reagan. I'd like to think that, he had the foresight to see, despite what, my heartstrings are telling me to do, this is not the way to do this. I don't know for sure. I didn't get that far back in my research. But either way, this has been going on for decades. Trump can't set a precedent that's already been set. That's the antithesis of a precedent. That's why they call it following precedent, because the precedent's already been set. Come on. Shut up with this idiotic argument. What is that? What is that? Weakest argument I've ever heard against a president doing what is necessary. To wrap up what Pelosi said. Miss Pelosi, should you ever decide to follow that train of thought, you will see why, in all their glory, these men warned us about you, and they ensured that we had our right to bear arms and that it shall not be infringed. You will see it firsthand. And you're going to be lucky. I'm going to be perfectly honest. Any politician who threatens this kind of stuff, when the day comes, will be lucky if it's ended by the gun. Because I assure you, there are many, many, many constitutionally abiding Americans in this country who are not interested in giving it to you that quickly. Period. You had best think about that beyond any shadow of a doubt. Because you try to push this through, you will cause an armed uprising. You will. You have already clearly defined the lines of the next civil war that is coming in this country and which side you're on about it. And you will reap the benefits. You will reap the consequences of your actions. Plain and simple. Americans, genuine Americans, will not tolerate this. That was a horrible decision to make. You are going to be watched religiously from here on out. It's just that simple. You messed up. You stepped in it. It was a bad idea. Now we are going to move on to part 2 of this episode, ladies and gentlemen. Part 2 of this episode, as the title implies, we are going to be talking about the 25th Amendment conspiracy against the President of the United States, because it is nothing short of that. If Democrats, namely Hillary, want to try to say that there was a vast right-wing conspiracy against Clinton, even though we did in fact prove, yeah, you did lie to Congress, well, guess what? Here is the vast left-wing conspiracy, and we're going to prove it too. We are about, I would say, 3 to 5 steps away from proving that from the top down, the left has been orchestrating this whole thing, knowingly, fraudulent, full-on understanding of just how terrible all of this really is. And how bogus it all really is. Just how full of holes these allegations really are. They've known from the start. And here's where we're at today. And this is where it gets good. Now, the media would like you to believe in this fiasco that all of these names are unrelated. You've got Orr and Wiseman over here in segment 1. You've got Page and Storkboy, Strozak, however you want to say his name, over here. They'll be referred to as the Lovebirds from here on out. So way over here, you've got Orr and Wiseman. Over here, you've got the Lovebirds. Now up in this little bubble up here, you've got Stone being indicted. Over here, you've got the Senate saying, no, wait, no, there's no collusion. There's nothing. Nope, stop. There's no proof of collusion. And then up here now, you have the new bubble that is emerging between McCabe, Rosenstein, and quite frankly, Sessions. Sessions doesn't get to wash his hands of this because he's had to direct a role. Let me update you on what this bubble is, and then we're going to tie all these bubbles together. Okay? All but one. And the one bubble that doesn't get tied in is quite possibly the most important one because of the timing and the foreshadowing that's going on here. This is actually really, really cool. If you don't typically watch my videos, I'm going to ask you to please, 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 at the very least, give me 20 minutes of your time. So here's the deal. Recently, things have been falling apart. As we just said, we had the bubble come out about the Senate has said there's no evidence of collusion. It's over. There's nothing here. And almost immediately after that, as that's really happening, probably started this deterioration probably started happening before that announcement was made. Everyone knew it was going to be made, and this started happening. You have McCabe and Rosenstein, who've been hand in hand with this whole thing the whole time, now separating from each other, okay? Please cast your mind back to episode 1 through 3, where I repeatedly made statements about how the corruption in our government is both self-phobic and self-philic. Corruption-phobic and corruption-philic, okay? the corruption thrives off of itself as it spreads. Corrupt A meets corrupt B. They work together and they spread their new form of corruption into other facets of different areas, and it all starts crumbling and whatnot. When it all starts crumbling is when it becomes corruption phobic. Now it's, I've got to separate from my initial corruption, my initial partner in corruption. A and B must separate, and A lobs accusations at B and B lobs accusations at A, and now they can't be further from each other. It's exactly what we're seeing happening right here, right now, with this McCabe-Rosenstein situation. McCabe has come out and said Rosenstein suggested that we illegally record the President of the United States. And I know a lot of Democrats are sitting there going, well, why is it illegal? Go down to any local courthouse and look at the signs posted on the doors of the courtrooms. You are not allowed to record in there. It's the same thing for virtually every government building that you can think of, in which there are conversations that do not need to be disclosed to the public in an outright manner. Be it security clearance, be it whatever reason. They have their reasons for it. You're not allowed to do it. I think it's bogus myself. I believe that anything that the government talks about should have an open transcript that can be reviewed by the public. But I don't get to decide those things. Unless, of course, it's a national defense, security purposes, where you need a security clearance to be privy to the information. That's a whole different ballgame. So, all this is happening. McCabe is saying Rosenstein said to do this. Rosenstein comes back and says, whoa, that's not true. I said it jokingly off the cuff. I didn't really suggest it. Well, then McCabe doubles down. This is where the corruption is now corruption phobic. It is now separating. He doubles down and he says he was absolutely serious about doing this. Okay? All of these things start coming out. Okay? Oh, another bubble I forgot about. Baker's testimony. Do not forget Baker's testimony, because it's very important, okay? I'm going to give you Baker's testimony as we transition from what this new bubble is and start tying bubbles together, because this is really, really fascinating how this works. So, all of this is going on. And of course, Trump is hearing about it. He's following this. Trump's already a few steps ahead, but now he's finally getting to the point where he's getting to put out little tidbits about why he's so angry, okay? And he went on a Twitter rant, which again, the Twitter for him is a double-edged sword. I've called it that before. This is the striking edge of the Twitter account. Wow, so many lies by now disgraced acting FBI Director Andrew McCabe. He was fired for lying, and now his story gets even more deranged. He and Rod Rosenstein, who was hired by Jeff Sessions, another beauty, and that's him, not me, I didn't say that. He said another beauty, looked like they're planning a very illegal act and got caught. There is a lot of explaining to do with the millions of people who just elected a president who they really like and who has done a great job for them with the military, vets, economy, and so much more. This is the illegal and treasonous quote-unquote insurance policy in full action. Remember the quote-unquote insurance policy. So Trump is coming out and he's saying, yep, there's problems. Why make the insurance policy reference though? Because that goes back to the conversations of the lovebirds. That's how we're going to tie the lovebirds into this as we go. Moving forward. This is going to be... I'm going to jump back and forth between the Fox News and CNN articles because they were the best ones about this. Right now I'm on Fox. While Trump fumed at McCabe, the former FBI director claimed he never actually considered taking Rosenstein up on the offer. He said he did discuss the matter with the FBI's then general counsel, James A. Baker. Last fall, as reported by Fox News, Baker told lawmakers during a closed-door disposition that McCabe and Page came to Baker contemporaneously and told him details of the meeting where Rosenstein made the comments. Baker told congressional investigators he took the word of McCabe and Page seriously. Okay? But nothing was done. You say you took it seriously, but nothing was done. At the time, you were the general counsel for the FBI. Come on, how does that work? If you're taking it seriously, do something. McCabe told CBS News that I think the general counsel had a heart attack when I told him of Rosenstein's plan. Hang on, let me jump back to the Fox one here. and then this is, again, a quote from McCabe about all this. And when he got up off the floor, he said, that's a bridge that's too far. We're not there yet, McCabe added. Okay, so Baker is sitting here saying, yes, they told me and I took it seriously. McCabe comes out and says he was stunned, he had a heart attack, and then he said, we're not there yet? Doesn't sound like taking it seriously. Sounds like you were considering that that's an ace in the hole for later. That's what that sounds like to me. You weren't considering investigating the statements. You were considering keeping the plan that was proposed in your pocket until you might need it at a later time, Mr. Baker. So McCabe comes out and he starts outing this. Now we're even separating further. We are full out running from each other's corruption at this point. It's fantastic. So Rosenstein is sitting there, still sitting, making by... Yeah, that's a good one right there. Rosenstein is still standing by his statement that I never said we should record the President of the United States. I am not the person who gets to make the call about the 25th Amendment. And McCabe yet again comes out and says, Rosenstein raised the 25th Amendment issue and discussed it with me in the context of thinking about how many other cabinet officials might support such an effort. It was his belief, he was under the impression that it had gone so far as that Rosenstein was actually quietly saying, if we brought up the 25th Amendment issue, how would you consider it? Okay, that's called counting votes. That's what anybody does whenever they're going to try to get something before Congress and whatnot. They want to get a vote count to see where it sits, okay? So, as this is going on, Baker starts deciding, okay, it looks like McCabe's going to win this, so I'm going to go ahead and throw McCabe a bone. McCabe comes out and backs this. In his testimony that he's still giving, there was even more testimony. There was even more light shown on this 25th Amendment allegation, and Baker said that there were 2 cabinet officials who were ready to support such an effort. That validates what McCabe said about, I think they were counting votes on this type of thing. Baker's sitting there going, yeah, there were already people on there, and they were already on board with it. As a matter of fact, his full statement was, I was being told by some combination of Andy McCabe, the new bubble, and Page, the lovebird bubble, that in a conversation with the Deputy Attorney General, he had stated that this is where it involved me, is what Baker's saying, that he had at least 2 members of the president's cabinet who were ready to support, I guess you would call it, an action under the 25th Amendment. Okay, so for those of you who don't know, the 25th Amendment is essentially presidential succession. How does this work? Not secession, totally different. Succession, okay? Who does the power of the presidency go to, and how does it get there? There's a bunch of different sections, and Section 4 is the one that we're talking about here. If enough of the right people in the right places decide that the president is unfit, they can call for a transition of power from the president to the vice president. That's what we're talking about here. Why is that important? Well, if you record the president directly after he fires Comey and get enough sound bites together that you can mix and match and make it look like he's not in his right mind in doing this, you can then bring this information forward to Congress, and you can say, he's not fit, here's why we don't think he's fit, here's the things he said in these secret recordings. This has to be disclosed under freedom of information or whatever backdoor you're going to use to disclose confidential conversations, and then you bring it forward and you oust him. Why do you oust him? Because chances are you believe that the vice president isn't going to hardline as much as the president is. I think that's a very bet. Nobody should be underestimating the vice president of the United States, but they are. I'm not the one deciding the policies and the actions. That's what they think they're going to do. So, all of this comes back together with all these other bubbles. How? Well, here's what's up. Let's start with the lovebirds. The lovebirds were having conversations that they should not have been having. And in those conversations between Peter Stork, as I'm going to call him, and Paige, between Peter and Lisa, you've got this frequent statement that keeps coming up. Insurance policies, blah, blah, blah. And the liberal media comes out and says, nope, stop. They're not talking about anything bad. They're talking about separation of the government. They're talking about the branches. Well, you just elected somebody who doesn't know what the three branches of government are. So no one bought that we were talking about separation of government back then. The Democrats don't want a separation of government. The Democrats have been trying for 20 years to make a conglomerate mass government in which everyone is corrupt and in cahoots with everybody else. So if one goes down, everybody goes down. So nobody's going to allow anybody to go down because they don't want to go down. That's what they've been doing for 20 years. It's not hard. So don't give me that crap. Well, now we know what the insurance policy was about. How do we know what the insurance policy was about? Baker's testimony. Because Baker testified that McCabe and Page have been in discussion with the Deputy Attorney General himself, and that they were counting votes about who would back an action under the 25th Amendment. Those are the insurance policies that the lovebirds are talking about. If we have to, we're going to secretly record him, make him look like he's not in his right mind, and we're going to get him with the 25th Amendment. Which, by the way, historically speaking, was why there was a large opposition to the 25th Amendment. They were worried that this exact kind of thing would happen. As a matter of fact, some of the opposition to the 25th Amendment goes back to my wonderful books that I keep under my desk right here of this is dangerous. We don't need this amendment. This section of this amendment does not need to be here. We have other ways to do this. Those other ways will work if they need to. We haven't had a problem with this yet, and we will continue to not have a problem with this. There's no reason to do this. We have a way to solve this problem should it arise. Unfortunately, here we are. I mean, it's just that simple. Now, you have tied Baker, the Baker bubble, to the McCabe bubble and the Lovebird bubble. How does all this go back to Orr and Wiseman? All of this goes back... Oh, I'm sorry. We're not going to get to Orr and Wiseman just yet. Let's connect the Mueller appointed bubble with Rosenstein. All of this is happening, and they're saying all of these things about the 25th Amendment are happening, and this goes back to Rosenstein. Rosenstein is the guy who, under the authority of Sessions, appointed Mueller to take it over, as he was told, no, don't record him illegally. He's told this by McCabe and by Baker, if you believe that that's what's going on here. And as all of this is happening, they go back and very quickly appoint, they being, well, really Rosenstein in his office, appoint Mueller, who is Wiseman's right-hand man. Or, I'm sorry, reverse it. Wiseman is Mueller's right-hand man. Now those bubbles are tied together. So 4 of these half-dozen bubbles are now tied together. All of this is happening. Wiseman gets outed by Orr. How did Orr out Wiseman? Orr outed Wiseman by saying Wiseman knew about the dossier, knew that the dossier was bogus, knew that it was drafted by someone with anti-Trump connections, that there was nothing legitimate contained within the dossier. Okay, fine. That's how it's going to be. So be it. We're going to ignore what you've said. We're going to gag you, make sure that you can't tell people you told us. And we're going to use a false testimony to the FISA courts to get warrants for all this stuff. Okay? So that's where all those are tied together. As all of this is going on, you've got your off bubble over here of the Senate going, no, 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 there's no collusion. There's no collusion. Why? Why would they do that now? Because all these bubbles are starting to tie together. That statement now gets tied in. And all of those bubbles go back to indicting Stone. Before Stone was indicted, none of this was considered to be front page news. None of it. Anyone with 2 gray cells looks at this and goes, you just indicted a guy who has a revenge complex against you, who has all but been mocking you to indict him. He's been goading you. He's been saying he's ready for it. He's been waiting for this day. He comes out and says, I will not back down and betray the president. I will expose what is going on here. He's going out and doing all this stuff, and then all this stuff magically starts coming to light on its own. That's the last bubble. That's where the last bubble's going to get tied in. Stone has some type of information from his conversations with WikiLeaks that ties all of this directly back, this whole farce directly back to Mueller, and I believe all the way up to Sessions. Maybe even higher than Sessions. But very, very quickly, what I'm getting at is all of this is unraveling at such a rapid pace. You can't help but look at this and go, you know what? This is dangerous. This is scary. This is treason. And that's exactly where we are today, folks. Now we are sitting here watching all these bubbles start getting threaded together. Even Fox News isn't threading them together for you guys. They're going out and reminding you that the bubbles are there, but they're not being threaded together. Look at it objectively as we can as citizens of this country. All of these things that the media, for years now, well, at least a year and a half, have been coming out and saying are unrelated incidents. There's nothing to see here. It's just a wag the dog by the Trump administration to get the heat off them. No, it isn't. As a matter of fact, it goes the other way. Everything that they say about here's major proof that there's collusion and there's a scandal and da-da-da-da-da, all of it ends up being a non-story. Nothing is actually happening. No one is burning. Nobody's getting in trouble for any of this stuff. People are getting in trouble for completely other things, completely separate things. Then the media tries to tell you it's for this, but when you look at it, you go, no, it's not. Just like the indictment with Stone. They said he's been indicted for colluding with Russia. No, he has not. That's not at all what he was indicted for. So all of this is going on and continuing to go on. And yet, in the background, slowly but surely, the corruption is reaching from the lovebirds to the low-level players like Orr and Wiseman at the time. Wiseman was not a key player at the time. He was not a key player until Mueller was appointed. And then once Mueller was appointed, he became Mueller's right-hand man, which has corruption all over it in and out of itself. All this is going on. Now you're getting up to the mid-level people like Baker, McCabe, all the way up here to, help me out, Rosenstein. All the way up. It's creeping up, folks. This is why the correlation about the corruption-phobic and corruption-philic examples I gave you are so important. Because everyone is tied to everyone else's corruption. From bottom all the way up. Mueller knows he's in trouble. That's why he brought in Stone. He has indicted Stone, the off bubble that hasn't been tied in yet, to try to shut this down now before the whole disease-ridden, corrupt temple comes crashing down on his head, Sessions' head, Rosenstein's head, everybody. He's going, you guys put us here with your corruption, I went with it, it's tied outside of us. If you think this is only tied to the FBI and the DOJ, you're wrong. There are names somewhere, probably in Hillary's deleted emails, that have senators' names, congressmen's names, all kinds of people tied to this. And if it gets exposed, I mean, if you're talking about wanting a catalyst for violence in this country, I can't think of a better one. If you don't step down and remove yourself and face trial for what you did, we will hold you accountable. You can't tell me that people won't be thinking that once this all comes out. And it's about to come out. It's coming out before 2020, that is for sure. You can guarantee it is coming out before 2020. There is no question. As all of this continues, as all of this keeps happening, as all of it just bubbles and masses and implodes on itself, names are going to get dropped, people are going to burn, and it is all going to hinge, mark my words, on something Stone has in his back pocket. He's the one bubble that isn't tied in yet, but he is, even though he's not tied in, his bubble is the catalyst to the chain reaction of crumbling corruption throughout this entire thing. None of this started to break down and unfold publicly until Mueller brought Stone into the picture. That's going to be worth watching, folks. I guarantee you, this is going to be the single biggest, I don't know, I just don't know what to call it other than conspiracy in the United States government history. This is going to be the single biggest outed conspiracy ever, okay? It is not, this will not end up being a situation like who shot Kennedy, or did they really kill John Wilkes Booth, or did they hire John Wilkes Booth? It's not going to be any of that. It is strictly and purely going to be a full-on ousting. Confidence and the ability to trust this government outside of the Supreme Court and the executive branch it's gone. It's gonna be gone after this. They're not going to trust the investigative departments. They're not going to trust the legislative branch. It's going to burn. Whether people's names are directly involved or not, they will not be trusted after this. You want to talk about draining the swamp? He's held up to every other one of his campaign promises as of last week. I see no reason to think that he's not going to drain the swamp. And if you want to talk about pulling the plug in the bottom of the swamp, this is it, ladies and gentlemen. This is going... Democrats think they are solidifying a solid victory across the board in 2020. What's actually going to happen is more than likely a period of civil unrest, a short period of civil unrest, as these people are outed and held accountable. And you're going to have a massive influx of red wins in 2020. There's no two ways about it. What do I think the final catalyst in this whole composition is going to be? Here's what I think. If you've been paying attention, one of my favorite congressmen is now practicing law. I am, of course, talking about Trey Gowdy. I'm verifying that he is actually practicing law now. Yes. He's getting back into law practice. Trey Gowdy suddenly stops what he's doing, says, I'm not running for re-election, there's too much corruption, but he doesn't just say, I'm stepping away from it. He says, I can't do anything about it from here. And he steps out. I see all this happening, all these bubbles coming together, and I see Trey Gowdy step out and go back to practicing law. I can't help but think that very shortly we are going to have an appointment from Trump to some position, and the very first name that's going to get dropped is Trey Gowdy. And they are going to, for that appointment, whatever it is, they are going to fight tooth and nail to keep him out of there. Both sides. And it's not going to work. He's going to get his appointment. He's got too many players and too many cogs now. Too many players in key spots. He's going to get what he wants. I think Trey Gowdy is the final catalyst because I think Trey Gowdy will actually prosecute this stuff. Trey Gowdy will actually be the person who gets to go in there and say, yep, I got to wear a bulletproof vest, and inside my courtroom I'm going to have 2-inch ballistic glass all the way around me, just like a president at a speech. And I'm going to have a bomb-proof barrier set up within my stand to make sure that, I don't get blown up. But I'm going to go out there and I'm going to do this and I'm going to out these people. Whatever name comes across my desk is going to be held accountable. I think that's the final catalyst. I think when we're going to very soon start seeing this crumble in full glory, everybody's going to start burning, and you're going to see Trey Gowdy quietly get dropped for an appointment somewhere. It's going to be phenomenal. This year is going to be the year that massive government corruption exposure is achieved. And I'm going to love every stinking minute of it. I'm sold. It's just that simple. I'm sold. He has now officially followed through with every other campaign promise he has made, and thus far has only made half measures on draining the swamp. Don't think for a minute that it's beyond reasonable thought to think that he's known what was coming and he has allowed it to happen to this point so that he can bring the whole temple down. Wait and see. I think it's going to happen. That's all I've got for today, guys. I know that was a long episode, but man, I'm excited about this stuff. Thank you guys for your continuing support. I'll probably do a small video sometime this week, put it up on the Facebook page. I have some ideas I want to bounce off you guys, just to see if maybe a once or twice a week short video would suit y'all's taste better. So we're going to talk about that. I want to ask your opinions, see what you guys think, get some things out there and, fire stuff off. It's going to be fun. It's going to be a good week. I have some work to do. I've got to get out there. I've already burned way longer. I was supposed to already have this half uploaded. It's just now finishing here at 10 o'clock. So that's all I've got for you guys. Take care. Have a safe week. Don't do dumb stuff. What's dumb stuff? Dumb stuff you can avoid. Be smart. Be safe. Don't be a communist. Stand by to stand by.